All right, welcome everyone to this 23rd day of 2023. Where on Dave Cooper Live, we are talking about construction technology, building technology, all the trends that are out there, what will win and what might lose in 2023. So please welcome this cross section of industry experts as they weigh in on what construction technology trends win or lose in a lightning round table discussion right here on Dave Cooper Live. Given the economic forecast and ongoing supply chain, skilled labor, and housing affordability issues plaguing the construction sector, how will the new year play out? Panelists Jerry McCaughey and Hardy Wenzel will debate on the topics of industrialized construction, mass timber component manufacturing, robotics and automation, and more on Dave Cooper Live. And Ben Hershey will hopefully be joining us very soon once he's in range of some cell service. But we can't do any or all of this without our sponsors. So we got to give those a big shout out as well. To bring all of you these informative conversations, we need those that support us and support our industry. So here's a word from our sponsors. Carson Holmquist and the team at Stream Logistics are experts in high-stake freight. They are the perfect choice for projects with timelines and a specific delivery sequence, shipments with high complexity and unique constraints. The new methods of construction need new transportation solutions, and they are up for the challenge. Visit them at streamlogistics.com. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Brave Control Solutions, where offsite manufacturing systems that do more than just improve productivity. They have a unique approach to industrialized construction, a lineup of flexible automation systems specifically designed for the construction industry, empowered by CAD to Fab, and turnkey solutions for 3D volumetric assembly, structural insulated panels, finished wall assemblies, MEP component processing, assembly, kitting, and storage. Learn more at thinkbrave.com. All right, there we go. Now it's time to get into the good stuff. Everything that you've all been waiting for. We are going to bring in our guests, Hardy Wenzel and Jerry McCaughey. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you today? Good morning. Feeling great. It's good to see you, Jerry. It's good to see you again, Hardy. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, though, I would like each of you to just take, 30 seconds to a minute. Let the world know what you're up to these days, what's going on, and then we're going to hop into this round table. Jerry, why don't you go first?
Okay. Well, I don't know how much people know about me, but I was the founder of Europe's largest offsite manufacturer, Century Homes in Ireland, and subsequently was the founder of Integra in the United States. And now I am running my own offsite consultancy business, basically helping companies who want to set up pretty much advanced automated offsite manufacturing, or those who want to transition their existing component manufacturing to what I would call integrated offsite manufacturing, and those also builders who want to make the switch from traditional stick framing methods to offsite construction. So pretty much anything that touches offsite in the industry, I'm there to help people try to make that transition.
Yeah, I love it. And you're one of the best out there for sure. All right, Hardy, let's hear about you. What do you got going on these days?
Yeah, I've got my own consultancy practice up and running as well, in the focused on the mass timber industry. Prior to that, I was the former CEO of Structurlam, and have spent pretty much my entire career in the engineered wood products sector, starting with a company out of Boise, Idaho called Truss Joist, which got acquired by Weyerhaeuser. I spent several years living and working in Europe in the engineered wood space, and then also spent significant time in the panel industry as well as the lumber industry. So I'm really happy that we're able to talk again, Dave. So thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, well, thank you both for being here. So why don't we just jump into this now that we're all settled in, and let's hit on some low-hanging fruit first, right? Data collection. Apps that enable you to track time, reduce errors, enhance workflows, track equipment inspection, safety compliance, streamline reporting, that single source of truth. What's happening in this space? Jerry, let's kick it off with you.
Well, let's go back to the expression, Dave, that we've all grown up with, that our parents told us, and that has subsequently never been proven to be untrue. Time is money. And so when it comes to modern technology now, the ability to be able to track time in a real-time scenario, to be able to give feedback to both factory manufacturing, to your site services team, to the manufacturing team. I mean, I think this is an area that is only continuing to set to grow, because what we're realizing now is particularly in times of serious labor shortages, which are only going to continue to get exacerbated as time goes on, time is going to become the single most important aspect to people on the job site. So I think the application of these apps that are enabling real-time information to go back to the corporate entity to enable them to get maximum efficiency is going to be an ongoing part of the industry. I mean, we're already seeing it, but I think we're still actually very much only at the beginning stages of this, but it's absolutely set to continue.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ben, welcome to the show. Glad to see you could pop in with us there. I know technology, isn't it lovely?
Yeah. Huge outage in my area, so apologize, but found one of our customers. I'm really thankful to them for letting me use their office. So,
well, we're glad you're here. We're talking about the first question, which is data collection and apps that enable you to track time and basically that single source of truth. We'll come back to you on that in just a second, Ben, but Hardy, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I think data is really another one of these four-letter words that we're going to just have to embrace going forward, especially as we do more off-site or prefabrication in factories as we do in the mass timber space. I had the experience of going in a business that was, a very old business that a lot of things were still not even automated, very manual process, and then trying to pull that up into more of a data collection system to a factory that was completely data driven, and the differences are profound. And moving the shop environment from two-dimensional paper shop drawings to all the information on a tablet, and having industrial carpentry move into tablet and types of environments to check connections, check details, check screw sizes, hole sizes, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just really, really important. And I think, Jerry touched on this, the need for data is so critical if you really want to understand your true costs and your times at machine centers. So I think, this four-letter word data is something that we're really going to have to embrace going forward.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, Ben, I mean, this is an area you spend a lot of time, trackable, wearable equipment that we're using, that single source of truth. What are you seeing happening in the space of data and trackable solutions?
Well, I think Hardy's answer, really right on point. Data is critical to what operations need. And so we see a lot of technology that's coming in. I think of, whether it be watches or tablets, even RFID chips, where the chips are either in a badge that somebody's carrying around that we can track them in the operation, or even embedded in the product that we make, so that we're constantly tracking that. There's a lot of, when you think about how am I managing inventory, how am I managing my people, all of those things, to most of the industry, that's being done manually today. And the whole idea of migrating to this, both Jerry and Hardy, they're right on spot, because it is critical for us to, how do we drive additional profits to the bottom line? But at the same time, how do we get that information and look at where do we have some gaps? Where do we have opportunity to improve? Where do we have opportunity to even change the inventory, how the inventory is arriving to our factory floors? So there's a lot of key things that I think in data that people really have to get their hands around and recognize that it is critical, not only to what's occurring today, but also in the future. I even look at, Dave, look at quality control and glasses. How do we use, how do we capture what's occurring on the floor in whether it be a Google Glass or some sort of virtual glasses that our teams are wearing, so that, again, that information is being captured. So I can marry it against the BIM drawings and look at what's the quality control. Am I meeting what's expected? Again, that data, just capturing that so that we can use it to our advantage.
Yeah, for sure. All right, appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. Efficiency is what we're all looking at, and the data is going to help us get there. Let's move to question number 2. Let's talk about drones. Land surveys, deliveries, think pulling mods or panels or mass timber to complex job sites, remote monitoring and progress tracking, safety surveillance, structure inspections, etc. Jerry, I know you've had your time using some drones. Why don't you let us know how you're using them today?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, drones are, I don't even think drones are a new technology anymore in terms of construction sites. Drones are an integral part now of running a job site. I mean, even to the point that because of the nature of offsite construction compared to stick frame, and this is where we sort of started using it, I suppose, to drive efficiency on the job site, was that it's hard to get the inspectors to be able to come out to inspect the building as it's going up in an offsite situation compared to stick frame, because things are happening so fast. So what we've been able to do now with a lot of different municipalities is get them to, once they trust the companies, to get them to accept information coming from the drones of the building as it's going up, so they can actually use the information and the data that's collected by the drone as part of the inspection process. So that to me, I think, is going to be a continuing part of where drones are going to help in terms of offsite, because you have these two issues going on. There's one, the speed of the process itself, and how does the current system change and match to make sure it doesn't inhibit the growth of offsite. But also the inspectors themselves, they're finding it hard to get around the job sites, even on the stick framing basis. So it's now an additional way for them to actually cover more job sites. So yeah. I think in terms of drones being used for that situation, I think that's already in progress, and it's going to continue to actually happen. But there's no doubt that it also improves safety on site. It also gives direct feedback to the manufacturer and to the suppliers with regard to the progress on site. So as you know, from a logistic point of view, when do you need to get the next set of deliveries to the job site? So, I mean, to me, drones are just going to be part and parcel of construction from now on. For sure. Hardy, how about you? What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, the space of drone usage in mass timber is also an emerging sector, especially when it comes to elements like structure inspection, to the point that Jerry made regarding how much faster these buildings can go up, and the square footage of material that can be installed in a single day. It will be very, very important that the engineers of record and all the people that are managing quality on site have this aspect of using a drone to actually look at connections, look at possible problems that need quick resolution because of the speed of construction. So the remote monitoring aspect of that will be a much bigger part of the solution going forward. And then I also believe that the just overall surveillance, we used to think that having a webcam on a job site on the top of the tower crane was a big deal, and it still is a big deal. And it's really interesting to see how you can track progress. However, you're looking at it from a very macro perspective, and with a drone, I mean, you can get right there and look very micro at a connection detail that might be needing a repair or needing some kind of a workaround. And so I really think that this is going to have a big place in mass timber.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Ben, you got some thoughts on these drones?
Let me echo. One of the things about logistics that is really cool when you're working on a huge project. You think about a multifamily project that's spread out over even acres. One of the cool things about drones is the ability to actually track what's going on there, track my trucking, track what's a sequence of things that I can bring in, whether that be a module or panelized that I'm constantly tracking, or even mass timber. Especially, just to be able to track that. Another cool thing that I just like to bring up that I really like about the idea of drones and cameras at job sites is that think about a lot of the folks that work for your operation. A lot of them never get that chance to go out to the field and actually see in person what is it that we're actually designing, or what is it that I'm pushing paper, or hopefully we're not pushing paper, but even what is it that on the computer that we see this job in our offices, but we actually never go out to see it and actually see it being assembled. And for a lot of the young people today, it's amazing when they start seeing what's that sequence of how that building goes together, and being able to capture that. It really enlightens them, and actually it helps them to actually say, wait, maybe this is something that we can do to improve that process. That's just another aspect of drones that I really find valuable. How do you use that information and bring it back in for training purposes?
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you guys this. I mean, can the drones also for, offsite construction, industrialized construction, whatever we're going to call it, my guess is they can go scan the site to make sure that the foundation or grade beams or whatever the case is going to be, the podium is in exactly how it needs to be in. Is it accurate enough to do that today? Hardy?
I'm not the best to answer that question, but I would think that it could definitely trend in that direction. When we look at the use of drones in other applications, case in point, maybe in a military application, and the precision that can be developed on certain targets or locations or what have you, I just have to think that we could get to that level of sophistication as well.
Yeah,
no, it is happening, Dave. I mean, and there's currently work going on with it. I mean, one of the areas that I think is very exciting for offsite construction as well is the use of laser scanning on the job sites. And I think the laser scanning now on job sites, in addition to actually, some of these companies are now developing the software for the drones so they can actually match both up against each other. So I mean, I think that is going to be a continuing development, and it will. And if it's not 100% there at the moment, you can be sure it's going to be there. So again, and what's important about that from offsite is, I mean, we hear over the years people saying, "Oh, you can't do it because the concrete can't guarantee the concrete slab, you can't guarantee the quality, you can't guarantee the locations of it." That's not true anymore, because the technology actually exists to make sure that you can ensure that everything's in the correct place. And we're only at the beginning of that from a technology point of view. So as these developments continue, that's going to get better and better and better. So there will be no excuse for people saying, "Oh, the concrete wasn't right," or the pins weren't in the correct location. So I think this is an exciting development.
Perfect. Ben,
yeah, and even where you see job sites that are geofenced, I mean, you see some very large contractors that'll actually geofence the project, and then you use that in combination with the drones and laser scanning. And I really have an accurate picture of what's actually going on out there. But just the whole idea of foundation, it's one of the things that, especially for panelized, is always a challenge, whether I'm using panelized or mass timber on the job site. And that's the whole idea, is the foundation actually to what the plans are supposed to be. And like Jerry said, being able to actually, for that concrete, whoever's pouring the concrete, to actually utilize that same technology and pour accurately, boy, I mean, it just saves everybody down the line a lot of time. And again, utilizing the drones and other geofencing, other things, technology that exists, technology that frankly we should be using consistently.
Yeah, to build on that, Dave, what Ben and Jerry just said, I think one of the big obstacles to overcome is actually to have people use the technology that's at their disposal.
Yeah,
and that's all. That's the case with anything that's new, right? You've got your early adopters that are all over it, and then the late majority are the ones that we have to pull forward.
And it's also back hardy to the whole situation of people understanding where their costs are, because you get people complaining that they don't want to go out and laser scan the slab because it costs too much money. I mean, think about the cost when it goes wrong. I mean, they're thinking about it the wrong way around. I mean, put the quality into it in the first place, and you save your money multiple times over. I mean, I've experienced that through my lifetime doing that. Put the money up front into the quality control, and you'll save it on the back end every single time.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with all of that. And it's not that much money to actually laser scan a foundation these days anymore whatsoever, compared to the cost of what it is to fix everything. So 100% agree. Thanks for the answers on all of those. All right, let's move on. And I'm going to start with Ben on this one. I want to talk about BIM software. Where are we headed with BIM? It seems to be finally a more affordable option. Everything from a manufacturing perspective all the way into the single family homes perspective. What are your thoughts on that, Ben? Were you able to hear me, Ben?
No, I apologize. We're starting to have internet issues in this area. Try it again.
Yep. So BIM software. Let's talk about BIM software. Where does it fit in? Where is it going in the future? And does it have a place for everybody? And should we all be using it?
Yeah, well, yes, the answer is yes. We should all be using it. We've been talking about this for, it just seems like too many years. And frankly, not enough people in the chain putting their hands around it. So as Jerry said, this whole design for manufacturing, design for the field. If I put in that time up front and I'm actually interacting with the BIM drawing that the architect has put together, the layers, you think about, all the foundation measurements, each of the different structural elements, even the architectural elements, the parts and pieces that are being used. All of that information is there. We just need to interact with it. But now go into, so take that BIM drawing and how do I manage the floor? How do I manage inventory so that I'm ordering, so that I don't have excess inventory? All of those kind of elements really drive into that whole idea of the BIM. And today, too many times you see if you go into a lumber yard, you go into even a component manufacturer, I mean, they may actually do a count. They're hand counting through a plan instead of actually utilizing the information that's in that BIM drawing and just automatically loading that into their their ERP system. That technology is already there. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces of software out there that'll pull that information so that somebody's not actually manually doing that. Anytime I introduce human element, I automatically have an issue with error. And again, trying to use that technology. Jerry is right. He made this point earlier. I'll never forget the adage: garbage in, garbage out. So if I don't spend the time up front, then I'm going to have garbage on the back end. So it's really, architects. We love them, but love their designs. Sometimes they're notorious for not closing up the drawing. And so again, trying to capture that BIM drawing and ferret out all those errors ahead of time on all the different elements, all the different things that I'm trying to do with this, whether I'm going to do panelized or I'm going to do module, taking that time to actually utilize that drawing at the early stage, that's BIM. I mean, that really is what we need to be doing today. It's been out there for a long time. We're not doing what we should be to interact with it, all the parties that are involved in that. So.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. Hardy, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so BIM is a huge part of the mass timber industry, and slowly but surely the industry is moving in the direction of using that in the design community. However, I must say that you still have a lot of occurrences where we're working off of a two-dimensional set of final approved design drawings and having to build our own 3D models in the mass timber space to actually do the things that we have to do to detail everything. Because in a mass timber building, every screw, connector, whether it's a pre-engineered connector or a custom connector, all those mechanical screws that have to hold that in place, that is determined by the CNC process on the factory floor to provide the cutouts for these connectors. All of that has to come out of a 3D model. And if if we're working still in 2-dimensional and having to build our own 3D model versus the more progressive shops are now, or design shops are using BIM exclusively, it makes a big difference, and it really eliminates the errors in that whole offsite prefabricated factory built kit of parts.
Yeah, I agree. Jerry, on this BIM software moving forward, is it where we need to be, or you see more things coming up?
Oh, no, I mean, it's continuing to evolve and develop. And I use the expression, Dave, that build it twice, because when you build, and they use the expression of the digital twin. When you build it on a computer screen and you figure out the problems, I mean, it's a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to figure it out when you're on the job site. But to put that in context, we started using BIM in Ireland in 1998 when we put our first automated Randec line into Century Homes in Ireland, because we realized back then that the quality of the output of the machinery, of the automation, was directly related to the quality of the information that you were putting into it. So again, back to what Ben said: garbage in, garbage out. So we realized very early that it was the drawing, the data, that actually drives people drives the quality of offsite, but drives people to want to use offsite on an ongoing basis. The problem is when you start trying to make panels and you're only using partial data, you end up, I would say, with partial quality on the job site. So the whole thing about offsite construction, and I think Hardy would agree with this, it doesn't matter whether it's in mass timber or whether it's in panelized or whether it's in volumetric. The more data you can get into your software, the better your BIM drawing is before you start manufacturing.
Yeah.
The better quality you're going to have on that job site, and the more efficiency you're going to have on the job site, and the more likelihood you're going to have a satisfied customer. And I think that's the part that people don't understand. I use the expression putting the cart before the horse. I mean, people not understanding it's the data. In fact, I would go to argue you can produce a very, very high quality product out of a very manual system if you've got very, very high quality data, but you can't do it the other way around. So the starting point here for all offsite construction, in my opinion, is the use of BIM and the technology there, and investing in that, just the same way as you would invest on equipment on your factory floor. Invest in BIM, because not all BIM is the same. And what separates one company from another company is the amount of investment they've made in their software design technology, their design for manufacturing side of their business. So I couldn't emphasize enough the importance of BIM in terms of quality and output and efficiency.
Appreciate that. All right. VR and wearables, right? We're talking about BIM, but now what about VR? What about virtual reality, wearing the goggles and being able to see the future of your building tied into the existing structure that's already there or what have you? Ben, where are we going with that?
Well, I think that, I said this earlier. So VR, just think about the ability to walk through that building even before it's done, and not just for our designers in the chain. So whether it be architects, structural, or our internal draftspeople, but it's also the owner, to be able to literally walk through that building and say, is this what you expected? Is this what I wanted? To be able to visually see the space in such a way that they've never been able to see that before. That is something that's here today. It's something that you see some companies using, but then now take that onto whether it's our manufacturing floor or out in the field. And think about this. So here's a way that we're trying to use some of the VR technology. I've got an issue with maintenance on a particular machine, and I know this is kind of off the track, maybe what you want, but I literally can bring up, here's the manual, here's what this should look like based upon the manufacturer's plans, and then be able to very quickly assess what's the problem with that particular machine. Or it could be, here's a panel that I'm looking at in the plant, a mass timber, a panel that I'm looking at and saying, wait a second, I'm missing these items for your QC inspector, to be able to quickly assess that before it gets to the field. All these are things that, to be able to use the VR glasses, that's stuff that, a lot of people are starting to pick up on that technology. There's great vendors out there who are integrating that with BIM drawings. Right. I think we're there. It's it needs to be adopted a lot more than what we're doing today. So.
Yeah, Hardy, I mean, mass timber buildings, I mean, the structures are huge, the spans are big, using mass timber. What is your thoughts on having some of this virtual reality in wearables to kind of watch a project as it's going?
Yeah, I had the chance to actually be a virtual reality guinea pig on a large project. We had a design workshop hosted at the company, and everything was being done up on BIM, and the architect brought along some virtual reality goggles that we were all wearing, and you can literally walk through the building and you can actually see where we were in maybe a 40% level of design drawings. So everything was still preliminary, but you could actually see where there were clashes or collisions between mechanical openings coming through a glulam beam in the wrong place, or the columns weren't lining up with the beam. So it was very, very, very effective. And that was just almost a demo perspective that I was asked to participate in. But I can just see that this whole thing is going to be very, very helpful as people are designing buildings, as people are going back into the QC process, and also on the job site when you need to see what the rest of the layering of the construction process has to do here.
Yeah, for sure. Jerry, I'm going to start off with a new question here that we're going to talk about with you. Being such an intelligent individual, I don't know how artificial intelligence is ever going to keep up with you, Jerry. But what is your thoughts on where artificial intelligence is going, how it's playing into not only offsite or industrialized construction, but also into the design world? Now the computers can tell you, hey, move the wall 2 inches this way; it'll be better for production. Where do you see this headed?
I'm pretty much the same way as all of those other pieces of technology. I mean, it's growing in increasing usage. I mean, I'll give you a few examples now of how have been involved in AI. But first of all, I'll start off and say is, even as you see that robot that's behind me, I would say now what we're moving into in terms of manufacturing is what I would refer to as fourth generation manufacturing in terms of offsite, which is not just robotics, but it's actually robotics incorporating artificial intelligence. So I think this will be the next stage where robotics in terms of offsite up to now has been showing a lot of potential. But I suppose one of the things that it's had difficulties with is the use of robots primarily favors a lot of repetitive tasks, even if you have thousands of them, but they're still repetitive tasks. But the ability to actually be able to program the robot immediately on the hoof, so to speak, as it sees new components or new connections or new things coming up, is something that's been lagging, I suppose, or holding the robotic industry back in terms of offsite. But that's now starting to happen because of the use of artificial intelligence. So I think we're going to see that now moving into the greater usage with regard to robots on the factory floor as opposed to just CNC equipment. But even Ben touched on it earlier on, and this is something that I've been involved in, where we've been working with actually it was an offshoot of people who left Intel, which is the actual idea of you were able to take the artificial intelligence, use 4K cameras mounted over your production line, so you can actually monitor the panel that's coming out of the line, compare the completed panel directly against the CNC file that went into the machine in the first place. So it gives you a complete quality control. It will alert you, warn you straight away that what you have on your CNC file, despite the fact that it may be correct, has not been done correctly by the machine, or if it required a human input, that human input didn't work, and gives you the warning on the line as you're doing it, so you can correct it. I mean, think about that in terms, again, of cost savings by the fact that you don't have to go out to the job site to send somebody out to fix that. So I think those things in terms of artificial intelligence are just going to continue to go on. And these are all things, I suppose, what these things do overall is they actually drive the wedge between stick framing and offsite construction, because these are all things that disproportionately benefit the efficiency of offsite. So as we move through the remainder of this decade, you're going to see these increasing efficiencies in the offsite manufacturing space, which will create a gap with the current on-site processes. So I think that's where we're going to see this technology having its dramatic effect, increasing that gap between the two different types of processes to build a building.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a hot topic right now, and how far it's going to go, and will the computers start really outthinking us and take over human life? Who knows? Ben, where are you at with AI and artificial intelligence?
Well, I think that, I just to echo, I mean, just the whole idea of, one of the challenges, I mean, we all know this, and it's not just our industry, it's every industry is challenged with labor. And, how do we leverage AI and how do we leverage technology to mitigate the problems we're having with labor, whether that's the skill of the labor that's available to us as far as a labor pool, or just being able to have the bodies that we need to manufacture, to actually assemble the finished product in the field. When you look at just the use of, and let's come back to robotics again. I mean, there's some wonderful companies out there who are pushing the boundary, who are taking robotics, what we've done in aerospace and automotive, and now we bring that to the construction environment. And, just the whole idea, what Jerry was saying, the idea of there are things that occur in our factories and in the field that are very rote, very mundane. It's the same repetitive work over and over. That automatically should be where we focus on immediately for robotics. The second is, all right, now, as Jerry said, we unfortunately, not everything is built the same. So how do I adapt AI and technology? So even if I'm looking back at that drawing that I'm preparing for, whether it's manufacturing or the field, and for it to automatically say, okay, this is what I need to adapt as I go to the as I go to the production floor. So those kind of things to me are where we'll see just huge gains in AI, how we're using it in our industry today. And again, robotics data. We talked about this right at, when I was able to start the conversation here, data. Those two areas are going to be key in how we leverage that to our advantage to get more efficient, to essentially complement the labor that we do have and increase the skill level of that labor, and then be able to design, really design even, we always look at whether it's mass timber, module, volumetric, the whole avenue, and say, sometimes we get stuck in a box, and well, how do we get out of that box and design more? Those are things that are going to be, AI, robotics, all of that's going to be able to help us advance that and be able to build that affordable home and build it in such a way that we're utilizing the best materials and technology that's out there.
Sure. Hardy, you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd like to take the conversation a little bit to the upstream of the factory floor or even the job site, but artificial intelligence in design. And I just go back to the IWBC Greenbuild Conference in San Francisco back in November, where Luke Whale from the UK came over and introduced his DAISY solution in doing AI design on engineered wood floor systems for single-family residential applications. And it was remarkable to see how he could design faster, he could increase productivity, he could design with a more optimal solution than what a human could do. And it was all done through genetic learning of the AI process, and how this also led to cost reductions and waste reductions. And so it was mind-boggling coming from that industry to see how he could design a floor plan using wooden I-joists and laminated veneer lumber for beams and headers in a full structural design in 30 minutes, where a human operator might take several hours to get to a similar output. So it was just mind-boggling for me. And after Luke's presentation, I quickly ran up to Luke and asked him, hey, can we talk about this for mass timber? Because there's a lot of repetitive design elements when you're doing the maybe not the structural design, but the actual layout of the different components of your CLT panels and glulam beams and columns, to really optimize that space to get better productivity and improvements to the bottom line. You'll always need people to oversee what's happening here by these AI machines, but that's part of your quality control process. And I think it's a higher level of thinking as well once you've got some of this bulwark being done by AI.
Thank you for that. Really do appreciate the insight on that. All right, we're going to move on to our next topic. We have about 8 minutes left, so let's get into it here. Building technology. This is a big word that encompasses many things. Jerry, let's talk about industrialized construction, from component manufacturing to prefab multi-trade assemblies, going from 2D to 3D. Where is it all going? As you say, if it's not a system, it's not a solution. I even remember that.
This could take a show in itself, and I think Ben's smiling because I think he agrees with
Okay,
me.
let me repeat that. You got 30 seconds.
I know. So I want to, and I know this is going to answer your question directly, but I want to take this point because it's been topical on LinkedIn over the last week or so. I want to make this point. There is a distinction between off-site component manufacturing and off-site construction itself. And then what I mean by that is an off-site component, yes, it may have been manufactured not at the job site. It's still a component. The beauty of the benefit of off-site construction or industrialized construction is it systemizes or systematically improves the process of building the building because it looks at the whole building. And so the idea that a component is an off-site solution is not correct. It is a component. It is part of an overall solution. And I think the industry here in the United States really needs to grasp this. There's a bit of a misnomer going around in the US that thinking, oh, I used a wall panel, therefore I've used offsite construction. Well, that's as logical as saying as I've used roof trusses, therefore I've used an offsite solution, because a roof truss is an offsite manufactured component. But people don't think when they've been stick framing their homes that they've been using offsite construction because they realize they've been stick framing everything else. And the same is true in industrialized construction. If it's not a system, it's not a solution. And so we've got to get this clear in our heads as well, is if you're going to bring the benefit of industrialized construction, you're looking at the whole building, not a part of the building. Because otherwise, again, I go back to the roof truss. Why do people not think the use of a roof truss means you've used an offsite construction solution? Because it's not. It's a part of it. And the same way as if you went out to build an engine is a system, and somebody sold you the piston, you don't think that you have built the engine. You've just got the piston. You've got a component of the engine. And so the same thing is true here. And I can't emphasize this enough in terms of we all in the industry, if we want to promote offsite construction, we've got to know what we're talking about. So people going around saying are thinking that they have used offset because they've used either a short wall panel or they've used a roof truss. And then they say, well, I didn't get the benefit of it. It doesn't really work for me. Of course it did. You didn't get the benefit because you didn't use an offsite solution. You used a component. And that's not in any way a negative reflection on the people who make the component. It's more on the definition of what is offsite construction. The profit is in the process. When you bring it as a solution, and the same thing is true of mass timber as well. And in many of these discussions, people saying is people don't want to buy a blank of a mass timber wall. They want to have the system delivered to them and erected because that's where the benefit comes. And I think that's more than my 2 cents worth. But I just want to get that point out. There is a major distinction between a component and a system.
Well, and that's it. And I just want to clarify something. If you use a system versus a component, you'll find that it goes together much better because it's accurate, it's precise, and it was designed using the best technology out there. And I think that's kind of a big point to make here. Correct, Jerry?
Yes, and absolutely. And it avoids this as well, because this is what you get at job sites. Oh, something didn't work. And then the finger point and stuff. When you get an offsite construction solution, one party is supplied it. There's only one person to point the finger at. So that's what I really think is a big issue. And I think Ben agrees with that as well, that if we're going to drive the industry forward, we've got to get that point out there.
Yeah, let me just say here, Jerry. All right, and I'm going to offend some of my peers in the lumber and component industry. Yeah, Jerry's right. That this is a topic that Hardy, Jerry, and I could probably talk for a couple hours just to share with your viewers, Dave. Uh, I look at so many component operations, so many lumber folks who say they are offsite, and they really are not. I can, and I always try to relate it this way. You said 2D, 3D, Dave. If I'm building it, if I send a singular truss, if I send a singular wall panel out, I mean, that's 2D, that's the past. And we've got to start moving to where I'm sending systems out. And I look at the component folks, and I challenge all of you. I challenge my peers to recognize that you cannot just send a bunk of floor trusses out. You cannot send a bunk of roof trusses out to the field and then say, okay, that's offsite, because you haven't addressed one of the critical issues in the field, and that is labor. And we have to address the labor issue side of this. And by sending systems out, I'm helping the builder actually build faster, build more affordably than what they're doing today. And we've got to just get that through. I mean, that's a fundamental thing that, you think about, fundamental shifts in our industry. And that is one of them that we've got to shift that thinking.
Yeah, for sure. And all right, everybody, if you're out there and you're watching this, what do you think about industrialized construction? Let us know in the comments. Hardy, what's your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I agree with everything that's being said here, Dave. So one thing I can say is that, in terms of the building technology moving forward, specifically around mass timber, it is moving at a very, very fast pace. And I look at projects in design that as a leading indicator for this, and our friends at Woodworks in the US do a great job of tracking the projects that they're involved with. And it's just remarkable by how much these mass timber buildings and the specification of mass timber is happening at a very fast rate. So, I think the industry is slowly starting to adopt. I'm speaking specifically of the commercial construction industry, because that's where mass timber fits the best. And I just see a lot of advancement happening. And fortunately, it's pulling along all of these topics we've talked about today in terms of data and AI and BIM and what have you. So I'll leave it at that, Dave.
Yeah, for sure. And for those of you that are out there commenting, questioning, we are going to get to those questions here after a couple more questions from the panelists. We want to make sure we get through everything that you came here to learn before we go down that rabbit hole of all the different questions. So let's keep moving on here. 3D printing, just speed round this one. Does it have a future? Does it not have a future? Jerry, what do you think?
I think the technology itself to 3D print the walls exists. It works, right? That's not my issue with it. I do have an issue with it, however, in that I don't know that the business model itself actually provides the benefit, because you still have to put roof trusses on, you still have to put floor joists in, you still have to put doors in, you still have to put windows in it. So if you're going to use 3D printing to say that you're solving the labor issue, well, where are you going to get all that other labor to fit all those other items, unless you, as the 3D printer, become the supplier of that labor also? But now you've become basically a whole house provider to the builder, and you're going to still have the same labor problem that they have, except the amount of labor that you're taking to finish off those is less. So you're trying to attract people in to put the roof trusses on or the floor joists in, whereas that same labor may have been framing the whole building previous to that. So it's not, I don't doubt that 3D printing as a technology to print the walls exists and will continue to develop. I do, however, have a question over the business model going forward as to how that's going to fit in with the whole labor issue.
Ben, does 3D printing, is it here to stay? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think there's opportunity. I agree with Jerry. It doesn't address a lot of the structural concerns that we have with whether that be roofs, floors. But there's probably an area that 3D can help with the structure, even if it's some of the parts and pieces in the house itself that are then installed in the factory. But I think there's a lot of R&D that needs to go into 3D printing yet before it's widely accepted and widely used.
Hardy, your thoughts on that?
I'll keep it brief. It's an emerging technology. Let's watch this space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. It has a lot of potential as well. All right, let's flash one comment up here just because it's relevant. Brett Jones says ICC offsite standards definition of offsite construction includes panelized modular components and modular buildings. Ben, I see you shaking your head on that.
Well, I hear what Brett is saying there, and yes, it does include all those. And I think the key that everybody's got to keep in mind. So when we talk about offsite, does it include panelized? Yes, it does. But it's what are you doing with those panels? Am I actually installing additional items into a wall panel? Like Jerry said earlier, I can just send a wall panel out to the field, but that is not true offsite, manufacturing. I've got to do other things with that wall, again, to minimize some of the labor in the field. And so keep in mind, the ICC may have put a standard out that says, all right, these structural elements fall within offsite, as far as a definition. But am I really addressing what are the issues and how do I, go back to I'm offsite manufacturing? What does that really mean?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead, Jerry. I see you're I can see. Put me in, coach. That's what I'm seeing happening there.
What is it? I know what delivers the benefit. I mean, I could actually put a load of photographs up to you now and show you panels from component guys sitting on a job site, just sitting there, right, doing nothing, because it's not part of an overall system thinking. When you look at the way true offsite works and the logistics works about it, I mean, it's a logistics play as well. You're delivering the items to the job site just in time because you don't want to hawk up the site with stuff stored there. You don't want to make sure you want to make sure it doesn't get damaged, but also you use the logistics as a methodology to drive the speed on the site. Because if you're sitting there with a trailer that has to be offloaded, they have to get those things up, then they'll move at a completely different rate than if there's wall panels just sitting on the job site. So they're just missing the whole point. It's about the system and what the system does to the overall efficiency. It's not a negative to the component itself, but you have to think about the totality of the system. And why is the customer buying the offsite solution? They're buying it to drive efficiency on the job site. And so if everything that you're doing is not about that, then you're not doing true offsite. And I agree with what Ben said, despite whatever the ICC wants to call it. I mean, if you go to Europe and see, can you find component manufacturers? You can't, because the builder doesn't want to buy the component. The builder wants to buy the offsite solution. He wants that building up as fast as possible. He doesn't care that you're using wall panels. He's not buying wall panels. He's buying an offsite solution that gets him the shell of that building up as fast as possible.
Perfect. Hardy, you got anything you want to add to that, or
No,
it is what it is?
Let's move on, Dave.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's get into waste. ESG, the carbon agenda and the impact on housing affordability. Hardy, I'm going to start with you on this one. Has the world lost its mind? Is this something that we can actually achieve? Where are we going with this carbon agenda and obviously the environmental, social, and governance side of this with ESG?
Yeah, I think it's one of the whole climate imperative is really, really driving the mass timber industry forward, right? Like when you look at the greenhouse gas emissions of the current building materials in place, namely concrete and steel, I'm speaking totally around commercial construction, so multifamily, tall wood buildings, offices, etc. The climate narrative is really pushing mass timber forward, and with that, you're also getting all of the benefits of offsite construction and prefabrication, which allows you to compress cycle times on a project. So it is real, and I don't think it necessarily has to be more expensive. In fact, mass timber has already proven that it can stand next to concrete and steel structures with mass timber and be cost competitive, handle complex engineering challenges, etc. So it's not a pipe dream. And I also think, why do builders care about this? It's because their consumers care about this, and when their consumers are driving builders to build more sustainably because the consumer cares about the climate imperatives, builders will listen and follow suit. So I think it's very real, and I don't think you have to pay a premium for this. And the mass timber has already demonstrated that it is cost competitive.
Sure. Jerry, let me ask you this about the carbon agenda. Is it a practical goal or is it a pipe dream? Do builders really care about it?
Well, sorry, if you're asking the question, I mean, I'd have to, it depends what you're asking. If you're asking me with my American hat on or you're asking me with my European hat on. Because
well, you know, we're kind of smack dab into the red, white, and blue here. Let's start here.
Well, in the United States, on residential, low-rise residential construction, they don't care. It doesn't matter, because you only have to look at the buildings built in California where they don't even sheathe probably 2/3 of the wall of the building. And you can't even start off to say that you're starting to build an energy efficient building when you start off that way. But when you look at from the European side of it, being pretty much now most of the European countries have now got an NZEB standard in place, which is near zero energy buildings. So the European Union is effectively driving all builders to go towards zero carbon or as very low carbon buildings. So the technology exists, the technology is being proven, the technology is in use. But then when you look at the US, and despite the fact that I'm living in California, and most people around the world would think that California drives the green agenda worldwide. Well, when it comes to housing, it certainly does not. And when you try to get builders here to think about building energy efficient buildings, we stopped even talking about green and sustainable with builders in California, because you just see their eyes glaze over. It doesn't matter to them, because it takes legislative power behind it to actually get them to change, because they'll still all go looking for the lowest cost portion. But then you have to ask again, what's cost? Just look at the climate tragedies that we're actually having. Just look what's happened in California in the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, I think we're way behind in the US, but it's like everything. I mean, there will be a convergence in the industrialized world. There definitely will be. The US will be a little bit more behind it, but it's going to move that direction. But at the moment, still says a long way to go. In low rise, I think what Hardy said is correct. I think in the commercial buildings, the ESG agenda is far stronger, and I think the investors are looking for it, and they're going to push and drive it. But in low rise residential, it's not there yet.
Not yet.
Yeah. So Jerry, in low rise, and sorry to jump in here, but you're already working in a wood-based solution, and so the embodied carbon aspect of a wood-based solution is already there. What you're really pointing at is the operating carbon.
That's correct. It's the operational carbon of Hardy.
Yeah, that's a problem, and that needs. And I think building regulations will improve, and that will force that agenda.
Sorry, Ben. It's just in California. I mean, there's a crazy, like Title 24, which is supposedly the California energy regulations. I mean, basically all it really says is stick solar panels on your roof and put double glazed windows in your wall, and you'll comply. Which really all they're saying is they're dealing with the supply side. They're not dealing with the demand side. So if you want to build a truly energy efficient building and lower the CO2, reduce the demand in the building by improving the fabric of the building. And that's not the approach that's being driven here in certainly on the West Coast.
Ben, you had something to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to echo that, but let me just. There's got to be a rethink of some of the materials we use too, and I'll give an example of this. So this morning I was out with one of our customers. They're a general contractor and walking job site, and so when you think about mass timber, they're essentially doing office buildings, doing tilt up. I say office and warehouse, doing tilt-up concrete. And knowing that I was going to be talking with Hardy today, one of the things I mentioned to them is that there is an opportunity to change that tilt-up concrete to essentially a CLT, a mass timber, and we don't think about that, and it's something that we definitely need to change. Some of the thinking that even architects who are coming out of school who are taught, this whole carbon agenda. They've got to start rethinking some of those elements of what we're using. I also just want to remind a lot of people that, the offsite manufacturing, true offsite manufacturing, that in many respects, as Hardy said, the embodied, if you look at the embodied part of the carbon agenda, that would truly, there's a lot of savings there. But if we also look at all of the different, things that we can do, that design, going all the way back to the start of this conversation, we talk about designing and making sure I'm utilizing the BIM, and then looking at the materials that I need in the manufacturing and how do I reduce all of that. A lot of companies do a good job of, managing that waste, managing the materials, actually ordering materials from manufacturers to a certain, size, dimensions, and making sure that they reduce that waste. So there are some elements that we try to bring in, but if you look at what really the ESG, what boardrooms are trying to drive down, we're missing the mark. But I think there's things that we can do today to start moving in the right direction.
Love it. Love it. All right. This is my last question. Yes or no? Let's not go any deeper than that. And it's going to be about housing affordability. Are we getting any better at building affordable houses? Hardy, yes or no?
Not really my domain, but I think if you listen to all the press clippings and the newscasts, we've got and across all countries, affordable housing is a big problem everywhere, and so I would say we're not getting better at it.
Great. How about yourself, Ben? What do you think?
I think we are getting better at it. I think it was interesting to me. Well, yes, you wanted the short answer. The answer is yes, I think, but we've got a ways to go. When you look at the design of the home, there's a lot of elements that we still could do better on. And then certainly in the factories, how do we improve efficiency in factories? That will bring that affordability more in line.
Yeah. Jerry, what's your thoughts on that?
I would say no. You said one word answer. I would say no.
Man, look at that. All right, perfect. And how about everybody out there in the social media world that's watching this show? What do you think is happening out there? What do you think we're doing? Do you see that the housing affordability is getting better, or is it getting worse? Or are we at least on the right track? Let us know in the comments. All right, gentlemen, is there anything that I left out today that any one of you want to make sure the world knows about either you or what's going on or what's coming up? Ben, I'll start with you and I'll wrap up with Hardy.
Well, I certainly, I just echo that. One of the cool things that I see, even though we may be in a recession, anybody can have a discussion of what that recession looks like right now. But one of the things that I see a lot of operators doing, and we're a part of that, the Forward team, and that is, how do we improve operations today? How do we, what's that next step so that when we come out of this recession cycle, that we're better positioned to meet the demand of housing that's out there. Certainly there's going to be a lot more factories coming online. I see a lot of that right now. Our team is very, very busy with multiple factories that are going to be built. But I'm encouraged by the investment in technology, the investment in, improvements in operations, and then certainly in rethinking what does that operation look like. Most people kind of cocoon when they get into that mode of, here we're going into a recession, and it's encouraging to me to see technology really take a forefront. I think it's something that's lagged for too many years in building. Great,
Jerry.
Oh, well, I would agree with what Ben said, and I would just I would say this to all the people who are thinking about getting into offsite construction, and this goes back to one of the questions at the very beginning. Invest in your design and engineering process before you ever invest in any technology. That will give you the best outcome, and it'll give you the best efficiency in your factory. If somebody's saying, what's the key? What has made one offsite company more successful than another? It's those that have realized and have invested heavily in their design and engineering process. And that's not just simply going out and buying the first piece of software that you see. And even when you buy a piece of software that you have decided to use, you still have to continue to invest in it the same way as you'd invest in other pieces of equipment and training on your factory floor. That is what separates the true offsite companies from the ones who are not so great.
Yeah, for sure. Hardy, we're going to wrap up with you, my friend.
Well, yeah. So my esteemed colleagues have all said very good things here, so I won't repeat what has just been said. But I will say this about the mass timber industry in North America, is that it is growing by leaps and bounds every year. It's got by some industry experts, for example, Art Schmoen from FEA. He will, and I agree with Art on this, but the industry is growing by 25 to 30% on average per year. Where we probably have more mass timber opportunity in North America than what exists in Europe. And I think some of my European colleagues would agree with me. After 25 years of market adoption in mass timber in Europe, there's just on CLT plants alone, there are 69 factories making CLT in Europe. And I think we're going to eclipse that. And we will, in North America today, we have basically 13 factories. So you can see where this thing has to get going. And we're going to be relying on European supply to fill the capacity gap that we have here. So I think it's blue sky. I think we're all of these topics today are emerging technologies. In some ways, we're stuck in the messy middle right now as we're growing through some of these growth pains. Everybody's pedaling as fast as they can to keep up. And I think it's just a sign that we're going to get there. So keep the faith, everybody.
Yeah, I love it. And you know what I'm hearing? I'm hearing the technology already exists. We just need to know how to adopt it and use it and stack the tech in our industry to be better and be more efficient. So appreciate all of you. Jerry, Ben, Hardy, don't go anywhere. Wednesday, Mike Eggers from Project Frogs going to be on. That's right. I said Project Frogs. If you don't know who they are, you should check them out. They're making big waves in our industry, and they're doing some great things. So super excited to talk about that. Everybody that joined us today, we want to thank you. Gentlemen, please go to the comments if you have some time and comment as you may. There was a lot of comments, but we are out of time. We went way over today. So hopefully we got through everything for all of you out there to get your questions answered, or maybe just learn something to help us all to build it better. I'm Dave Cooper. Jerry, Ben, Hardy, stay right there. We'll come back to you after the outro. Everybody else, we'll see you next time. Bye now.